Welcome to the Dissident Daughters podcast. I'm Ada, and I have my good friend, Nancy. Nancy with us again.
Who said, I forget too many glasses of wine at this point.
So
okay.
Today, I introduced Nancy to wine, and...
I love it. Okay, this could be something new for me.
So funny. So yeah, we were talking, and she said that she'd never had wine before. I was like, "Oh, you have to have this." So, yeah, you're a fan, right?
I am.
It's the best.
I am. Yep.
Yeah. So any of our listeners out there that haven't tried wine, so it's called Stella Rosa. It's really kind of a dessert wine. It's like
delicious.
It's just kind of a treat. It's sweet, and it's basically like just drinking fruit juice. And I love the buzz I get from it too. So Stella Rosa Peach is my very favorite, but there's probably like 10 to 15 different flavors. So go try a Stella Rosa. That's my recommendation. But here I am with my good friend Nancy. And we've been talking already how long have I been here?
So you came at noon.
So is it 3?
Probably.
No, it's like 2:40.
Yeah,
so yeah, we've already been talking for multiple hours. And then we keep saying like, oh, we should be recording this. And what are we going to record? This is pretty much just us.
We do have a plan.
Yes, we do have a plan today because Nancy needs to get some things off her chest.
I want to confess my Mormon asshole moments.
We've got some confessions to make. I don't even know. How did we get on that topic? But we just started talking about the stupid things we did when we were Mormon.
Well, that there's things that we're proud of, that we made a stand.
Yes.
And I talked about getting fired from
Yes. So do you want to tell that story first? Sure. Okay.
So it was the lesson about the sticky candy. Mm-hmm. And I was in what was the first one? The advisor.
You were
I was
in
the advisor,
young
but what's the youngest one?
Beehives.
Beehives. So I was the beehive advisor, and I was supposed to give this lesson. And after reading it, I was just sick.
It was the chewed up gum or whatever.
It was sticky candy.
Like candy that had been licked. It was so gross.
Anyway, and so I was just sick about this lesson. So I went to the president, who was over the laurels. She wasn't even, anyway. And so I went to the president and told her that I would not give that lesson. There was no debate. I says, I will not give this lesson. And she said, that might stop one of those girls from doing something bad. I can't remember her exact words, but anyway. And I says, and what does it tell the one that already has? Yeah. And left it at that. And I did not give the lesson. And 2 weeks later, I was released.
Yeah.
No explanation, no apology. Just released. And
dang.
And it really hurt. It really did hurt, because at the time I was still believing, and I was all in.
And you loved your girls.
Yeah, I loved the girls. They were wonderful, and so I was really hurt about it. But looking back on that now, especially knowing what I know about one of the girls and that I had, I am so glad. That's one of my proud moments. That's one of my moments. I am glad I stood up for what my gut was telling me to do, instead of doing exactly what I was told to do. Yeah. So you
did the right thing.
That was one of those
moments. Instead of the thing that you were, taught to do or whatever.
Yeah. But I was fired. So
it's so crazy.
It's okay. Yeah, I didn't lose a lot of money.
Yeah, no. You just lost a lot of work.
I lost my benefit package, I guess.
You didn't get any severance?
No severance. Yeah. So, but, it was sad to leave the girls and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
I was never fired from a calling. I had begged to be fired, and I could never get fired.
Really? Yeah, I was in the Scouts for 11 years and couldn't get fired.
You know what? I never got called to the Scouts, thank God, because that was like the calling I did not want.
Really?
And I would not even say that out loud, because I knew if I did, they'd call me to it.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just deep, dark secret in my heart. Like, please do not put me in the Scouts. I cannot do Scouts. I can't stand boys.
Really?
The little gross boys. Yeah, no, I can't. I'm not good. Okay.
I enjoyed the boys.
I don't like other people's kids. So. I just don't. I'm such a brat. I love that you are a teacher and like you do this beautiful, wonderful work with kids. I don't like other people's kids.
And that's okay.
I never thought that I would be a mom because I didn't like children. I love my own kids. Yeah. I'm not big on kids. Now, teenagers, I love teenagers.
Yeah, my one daughter's like that. She doesn't like to play.
No.
And so the pretend stuff.
No.
Now me, I was on a unicorn half of my life, or pretending to be a unicorn the other half. So that
isn't
pretend
that
thing
so
is so
funny?
good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I could never
Yeah.
do that. And I thought, if I have to do Cub Scouts and I have to laugh at their stupid jokes and like do the things that they want to do, I just can't do it.
I actually enjoyed the boys, but I did run out of ideas. It got to a point where I was like, oh, it's time to be released. But then they released me just before my son went in. So I served 11 years and my son went in.
And never got to even be with your son. Oh, well, that seems so weird and backwards.
He went to all the meetings before, but he wasn't a scout.
So he wasn't even officially a scout.
Anyway.
So was there any other calling in the church that you like really did not want?
Oh, I hated Relief Society.
Oh, you did? I loved Relief Society. Okay.
We
are finding something that's different about us.
To me. Oh.
Yeah.
So we would, the president that I was under, you don't work with her. You work for her.
Ooh.
She is a micromanager. Anyway. So
weird.
Yeah. And she would she would do these formal visits of moms that had, I'll tell you this one story. So when the moms would have a baby, she would want us to go in, formal visit, dresses, everything. And you would take the token casserole and the token blankets or diapers and visit with the mom. But she wanted it to be an official visit. She wanted it to be, we are here as representatives of the Relief Society and the ward, and anything we can do to help you. Yeah, right. Anyway, we'll hand you the Spam casserole. And so anyway, we went into this one young mom, and I could tell right off something was not okay. Oh. You could just look, you could see by the way she looked at that baby that something was amiss. Yeah. And I just wanted to throw out all of this formal stuff and just give her a hug and tell her it's okay to resent that baby. Yeah. It is okay to feel like you have been totally violated and your life has been taken away from you. It is okay to feel like that. Your body's not your own. You have no privacy, no dignity left. It is okay to feel like that. But I didn't do it because I was in that position of, I was supposed to be there as the Relief Society president, and motherhood is beautiful. And you know what I mean? And
just supposed to pretend that everything's fine.
And that mom ended up being hospitalized. And she had postpartum depression so bad. And I regret that so bad. That's one of, that would be one of my Mormon household moments.
There's one of your confessions for.
Yep, that would be one. Because I felt moved. Something was moving me. Call it the spirit or whatever you want.
I think it was just your
wrap
intuition.
my arms around her and just tell her it's okay. And I didn't. And so there's one of those moments.
Yeah, that's one of those that like you can never get rid of and take back or change and make different. Yeah. I have a bunch of those moments too. Yeah. And then, but also like as you have, like I have some proud moments too, where like, there was a talk or a lesson that I had to give in Young Women's where, we were talking about like their worth, and there was some part of the lesson that was talking about like that, you know, basically like that obedience increases your worth in God's eyes. And I said the absolute opposite. I just said, I just want you guys to know that like you came to this earth with infinite value and nothing you do will ever change that. You cannot, and I even went so far as to say, you know, you being righteous and doing all the right things does not make you better than anyone who, you know, does anything wrong or makes choices that you see as wrong. Yeah. And I just said, your value stays the same. Like you are a daughter of God and nothing will ever change that no matter what you do. And one of the young women was like kind of confused. Like she had never heard that before. I think she genuinely thought that like she was getting points by, being righteous. And we're totally taught
Yeah,
that.
we are taught that.
Like if you check all the boxes, then
Yeah.
you're better and God's going to love you more. But I said the opposite of that. I was like, God's not going to love you anymore, because I said God can't love you anymore. He already loves you an infinite amount.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Like,
right.
None of this matters is basically what I was saying, which is not the thing that they want you to teach the youth.
No.
Because they want you to prevent sinning. And
they want to set up that cycle of guilt and shame so that they need the church.
So it's like, talk about the atonement, but not too much.
Yeah.
Like, don't make it sound too easy, because then they'll think they can sin and just repent,
Right.
Like, there really is this idea. Not that I heard that specifically said, but for sure there's a feeling about that,
there
right?
There is that idea. I agree.
Yeah.
And the whole us and them thing is set up very, very early. We have the truth. We have a responsibility to share it, but we have the truth.
Yes.
And so
And those poor people who don't have the truth.
Yeah.
They're poor, pathetic souls that need to be saved, right? I would oftentimes feel pity towards strangers. Do you have that?
I totally get
it.
And
now it's like, they're just the same as me, and we're all good and everything's fine. And of course your heart can go out to somebody who's suffering, but I had no reason to pity them.
Right.
They were just somebody who didn't know the gospel, and therefore I pitied them.
Yeah.
They don't need to be pitied.
Yeah. And I get the pity now.
Yes, now we're the ones that people pity.
I'm on the receiving end of the pity.
Yes.
Because she had the truth and she left. And
and she let it go. Here, I'm going to pour a glass of wine. Listen to this.
Okay.
I won't take it all. I'll let you have the rest of the bottle.
I love this wine thing.
It's very good. It's very good. But now I definitely feel that. When I see members of my ward and they see me out in the front yard in my tank top, I think that they're thinking, oh, she's so fallen and lost and, lost from the church now. What was oh gosh, I swear I was having this conversation with somebody the other day about the time wasted, the time that we wasted in the church. Like I was saying, the fear, so much time that I wasted being afraid of things, being afraid of something bad happening, whatever. And then the time wasted doing all the things that we thought God wanted us to do, like church history, where you did so much.
So much. Yeah. I had a calling that was at least 4 hours a week, just doing, being at the center 4 hours a week.
So you were working at the family history library?
It was at our stake.
Yeah. But it was for family history, right?
Yeah.
So was the goal to get names to take to the temple?
Well, to help other people get names to the temple.
Okay.
So, and I love that kind of work. I do love research, but that whole temple thing now, I look at that. And, stacks of cards that are probably a foot high of names that I submitted and did the temple work. And the temple never did lose its eeriness to me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it was not not a great experience, you know, but I did it because I was expected to do it. And and then I would have other people help me and submit them to other family members and have them do it. But hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names. Yeah. And I'm really pretty good at it. But I honestly think there's a connection to those people. Yeah. It's not about the temple work.
It's not about
It's about they are part of me, and I think that's why, I was able to do it and
why you still kind of love it and get super interested in
and it's kind of I love mysteries and stuff like that.
Ooh,
and so it's kind of like that too.
Solving mystery,
it's just kind of in my interest level. And so anyway, but hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned this on my last episode maybe about just the time that people waste doing temple work instead of spending time with their loved ones now. Instead of doing the work to build relationships now with the people now. We put away, I think it's so easy in the church to put away this life for the next. Why is that? It's so messed up.
Because it keeps us busy and not able to see the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
The more busy you are,
Yes.
the less likely you are to see.
And to
what it
feel
really
the
is.
real feelings, like, because you just shove those down
Yeah.
so that you don't, like, spend too much time worrying about the issues or the doubts or...
Well, whenever I would have those feelings, I would think, oh, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
I'm not reading my scriptures enough. I'm not praying enough. I'm not, that's from the devil. If you're doubting the church, that's got to be from the devil. And so I always put it there, and I would do more and more and more to try and get rid of that feeling because, even though there were really good reasons for the doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So we shut off that part of our brain that allowed us to think critical and instead, just made that go away and focused on feeling the good spirit of putting a smile on and fake it till you make it kind of stuff.
And for me too, checking off boxes.
Totally.
I'm a task-oriented person. And so that was like visiting, teaching, done, the whole family history, done, prayers, done. It was that a sense of accomplishment that come from checking the boxes.
Totally.
So,
totally.
And a bit of self-righteousness.
Yes.
I look at my temple attendance. Was the good feeling because of the temple? No, because it freaked me out. Always did. It was from the
being able to say you did it.
I went, I went this many times this month, and
yeah.
And
I think even like bearing your testimony or feeling the spirit feels like a self-righteous thing of like, well, if I can cry, then that means I'm feeling the spirit, which also means that I'm righteous. And that's like an outward sign or something.
Well, not only that, but it's a psychological phenomenon that if you profess something, especially under duress, like you're in front of people, that would, you know what I mean? You will start to believe it. And if you do it over and over and over again, you will begin to believe it. That's why they tell you you will gain a testimony by bearing it.
By bearing it.
Yeah, of course you will. Because if you say something, especially like I say, under emotional or even physical duress, you're scared, then you'll start to believe it.
Interesting.
So
we brainwash ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
That's how that works.
Yeah. One of the things that bothers me so bad about when I was a Mormon asshole was, so I have an aunt who raised all of her children. Her husband is from another faith, and the greatest guy, just the greatest guy. He works really, really hard, has supported their children through everything. I mean, they're very active children, and he supported them through everything. And just super, superhuman. And every one of those kids got married in the temple, and he got to witness none of them. Yeah. He saw none of his children, even though he supported them through their whole lives.
He sat outside the temple.
He sat outside. And he sat outside with his parents with the most dignity I've ever seen of anyone. I'll cry because this upsets me so bad.
Yeah.
To think that he could do that. And like I said, I will probably have to face this coming up here pretty soon. I'll have grandkids that will be married in the temple, and I will be with the one on the outside. And I just only hope I can do it with half as much grace as they did. But it
would be really difficult to do that without feeling bitter.
Oh, I would be so bitter. Yeah. So bitter. One of the greatest moments of their life, and you are not able to witness it.
Yeah.
That where all of I look at the people that was inside the temple. I was inside the temple with them. Which I'm not even, I mean, I'm a relative, but, and they were neighbors that really didn't even know them that well. Members from their ward that, I mean, they might have been their primary teacher or something, but not that
But not
close.
their father.
Not their father or their grandparents who were doting grandparents. I mean, they were wonderful grandparents. And they were allowed in to see this moment with their kids, but the parents and grandparents, or the parent and grandparents were not. And I remember with one of the kids, I believe it was the youngest one, I was sitting there with my mom and my aunt, and I said, it's very sad that he can't be in here. And she says, he could if he wanted. He could be here if he wanted to. And I agreed with her. At that moment, I agreed with her, and it just makes me sick.
Yeah.
Because now I look at that and I think he could have been in there if he was willing to compromise his integrity and say he believes something he didn't believe,
Mm-hmm.
then he could be in there.
Yeah.
And that just, it makes me sick. That's one of my asshole moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is our confession. See, we have
Yes.
this little confessional booth here.
Yes. And what does the Catholic priest say? Go and sin no more.
Hail
Your
Mary.
sins are
Hail
forgiven. Oh, yeah.
Marys.
Say 3 Hail Marys and then you'll be fine.
That's right.
No, but I have a very similar asshole moment.
Okay,
at my
let's
wedding.
hear it.
Yeah, because when me and my husband got married, I was the worst. I was such a judgmental Mormon, but both of his parents had gone inactive years and years before, and so they weren't able to come to the temple. And one of them, I can't remember if it was his dad or his mom, had said, like, hey, like, would you guys want to do like some kind of a ring ceremony or something that we could be involved in, before you do the temple? And I just said no. I just said no. The temple is our ceremony. And I didn't say to them this, but in my mind, and probably I said it to other people, was, well, they could have been there if they wanted to. Exactly what you're saying was said. Like, they made their choice. It's not my problem that they can't come to the temple. I cannot tell you how much that's my biggest one. That's my biggest regret, because here my husband was. I think he had an uncle there and maybe an aunt. I think maybe his grandparents were there. I can't remember a lot, but like his mom and dad and his brother, because his brother was younger. So his immediate family, that's his entire immediate family. None of them could be there. And here I am sitting high and mighty, like I'm some, perfect person saying, sorry, too bad, so sad.
You could be here if you wanted
could be here. Yeah. And we're not doing some special outside ceremony just for you guys. Like, how freaking shitty is that?
I know. Okay, we're both assholes.
Yeah.
We were.
Yes. Absolutely assholes. And here's the thing. I do want to say that I don't think that all Mormons are assholes, right?
No,
and
I don't either. I don't either.
And I hope that's not coming across.
These are my asshole moments.
There are absolutely asshole moments.
And I call them that because they're moments I regret so much.
Me too.
And I wish I'd have just known then what I know now and could have said, he is not here because he does not believe.
Yeah.
And
and the church is wrong for dividing their family.
The thing is in his religion, if the kids would have chosen his religion, everyone, including the children, would have been able to be there to celebrate that marriage.
Yeah, because they actually care about families.
A big thing. Yeah, because a marriage is a family affair. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But not in the church. It's only for the elite. It's only for the people who pay their tithing and follow the rules.
And as my daughter says, gets the club card.
The club card.
Have the club card.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, that is so wrong.
And the only reason we had those asshole moments is because that's what we were taught to do.
We were taught. Yeah.
That's how we were taught to believe. That's what we were taught to do.
But how is it? I'm asking your listeners because I want to hear your answers.
Okay.
How is it that people like my daughter can figure out that's being an asshole at 12?
Yeah.
And it took me 53 years. How is it that some people can figure that out? If you're young and you've figured it out, we want to hear.
Yes. Yes. I had a cute little 16-year-old reach out to me and say she had figured it out and she'd been listening to my podcast, and I thought, good for you. I am so happy for her.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for her that she figured it out. And I kind of think that the youth is smarter than we were.
I do too.
They're much more connected to the world, first of all.
And more compassionate.
I think that comes with being
students. I'm seeing that in students.
I think when you are more connected to the world, you do automatically become more compassionate.
Yeah.
And of course, the internet helps hugely with that because it just connects you. It can connect you to anyone across the entire world, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think the kids are figuring this stuff out.
Yeah,
I just don't think that they're buying the shit that we bought because we didn't have another option. We didn't have, we didn't see any different way. I mean, my entire world was my city of 15,000 people.
Yeah,
it's
mine was smaller than that.
Yeah, yours is even way smaller than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I never saw beyond the border of my city, hardly at all, And you didn't, I mean, I guess some in TVs and movies you saw some, but you didn't see it in real life, and it's different. And I think our kids today are really, they have, because of technology, they really have the ability to more closely experience things from around the world. They're able to Google anything. I don't know, so I think that they're learning so much faster than we did and getting real grasp of the world and different types of people and religions and customs and more than we had.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I never saw any other culture. I never saw, I mean, it was white Mormon culture. That was it. Until,
it was the casseroles and the, just the way we do things.
Yeah. Yep. And there were very few even that had divorced families. I mean, it was all, I wouldn't say everybody had a happy family, but
of course they didn't.
They were all, two-parent families.
Yes, same.
Yeah. Mom stayed home and
I had a couple of friends in high school who had divorced parents, but they were the exception. They were the way more rare case. Like most of my friends had married parents. And now with my kids, most of their friends have divorced parents. Yeah. Most of my siblings have been divorced at least once. It's just a way more common thing. And I don't think that that's a sign that the world is going to shit. I think that's actually a sign that people are living their truth.
Yeah.
That they're not just...
especially women.
Yes.
Because I look at, the marriages stayed together when I was a kid, but the women were not. They had happy. No voice. No. They were not happy. And even less so than, because my grandmother had a lot to do with my upbringing. And she would talk about her generation, and wow. Yeah. I mean, women had no rights whatsoever then, And so now when they get their rights, they no longer will take the crap. And so yeah.
And education and all of those things feed into it. And so, just because, marriages didn't fall apart back in the olden days, which they still did, but, it was more rare. People stayed together. Rare. They didn't stay together for the right reasons.
No, it was out of necessity. Women could not support themselves.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. And so I don't see it as, Satan having an influence on the world. I see it as people living their truth and actually making the best decisions for themselves in their lives, I mean, of course there's exceptions to everything and, of course there's bad people and of course there's, bad situations, but for the most part, people, just because you've been married for 50 years does not mean you should be glorified. No. That doesn't, I mean, if you've been happy for 50 years, fantastic. That's wonderful. But I just don't, I think the shame around divorce kept a lot of people together for a lot of years.
That probably shouldn't have stayed together. And that just brings me, sorry, we're just rambling on and on. We just go from topic to topic. But I just keep having other thoughts. But my sister was in a terribly abusive marriage. And bishop after bishop after bishop kept telling her to stay in.
Stay.
They always did.
If you take good care of him, he'll take good care of you. And he's the priesthood holder. He held the priesthood the whole time he was abusing her. He was going to church and, doing all the things, holding all the and then he would come home and be physically and sexually abusive to his wife and verbally. He was terrible to her. And she tried so many times to get help and nobody would help her. Nobody would help her. And you know what ended up happening?
Time again.
Yeah. And what ended up happening is she decided to go back to college.
Yeah.
And then when she went to college, she met a guy. Yeah. And she cheated on her husband with this guy. And guess who was the bad guy in this situation? Her.
Yeah.
So she turned out to be the ward harlot, And her husband always...
Scarlet letter.
Yes. Yes.
That brings up another subject.
We can just keep going. But just the fact that everyone always thought that he was just the perfect guy, And she saw an opportunity to get out of that shitty marriage and she took it. And thank God she did.
Happy now.
She is so
Did she marry
happy.
The guy she had the affair with?
Yep.
And they're happy.
Yep. And she's out of the church and she's so happy. And
that's awesome.
And her ex, I mean, he's been through 2 wives since her, I think.
Oh, Ben, if he's abusive, he
He's a terrible.
Women don't take it anymore.
No, they don't.
Even my generation, as opposed to my daughters.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, I can count the number. I married a wonderful guy, but he just didn't do that kind of stuff. And I can count the number of diapers on one hand that he changed.
Yeah.
We had roles and.
Yeah. Yes. I think my husband and I have had pretty traditional roles as well.
Yeah.
Like if I could start over now, things would be different.
Yeah.
Because I think I felt a lot of guilt even asking him to help, like change diapers.
Yeah.
Or like even now, it's like hard for me to say, hey, hon, can you put the baby to bed? Not the baby. She's not a baby. She's 10. Can you help get her tucked into bed, instead of me?
Yeah.
Even now, like those things are a little bit harder, but I will say like, he steps up in a big way. He does a lot more than he did when we had very young kids.
Yeah.
And I honestly think he always would have. I just never asked him to.
I think
never
that's
felt
part of
like
the problem too.
I never felt like I could
ask
him to do those things because that wasn't his role.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was the same way.
Yeah.
I probably just didn't ask. Because.
Yeah, and I see my brothers who are quite a bit younger than me, but they are so much more hands-on with their kids.
Yeah.
Oh, they're doing all the things.
Oh, yeah. My son and son-in-laws are so involved.
Very involved.
And I think they're closer to their kids because of it.
Yes. So, yes, that really benefits them and their kids.
The relationships are better.
What downside is there to that? There isn't one. Like everybody benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, there were other confessions we had, I know. I'm trying to think because I know we talked about multiple ones. Okay, my
things
kids.
we did to our kids.
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, okay, here's one. My son had a friend he was hanging out with, and the friend was not LDS. And one day he said, "Oh my God," when they were just playing or whatever. And my son came home. He was probably in 4th grade. Came home that day after hanging out with that kid, and he said, "Mom, he said, 'Oh my God.'" And I said, "You probably shouldn't play with him anymore."
I've done the same thing.
And then he went back to that friend and said, "My mom said I can't play with you anymore."
Oh.
That hurts. That's just so icky.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So have you, these things that bother you, have you gone to these people and talked to them? Because I want to so bad. I just don't know how to approach.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great question. I'm trying to think. Well, first of all, no, I haven't. I've apologized to my son for that one, but not to his friend. I don't even know who it was or where I would ever find him. My in-laws, no, I have not apologized to them. And I think about it all the time.
Okay.
I need to do it.
A bottle of wine.
Yep. I need to do it.
Invite them for dinner and say,
yeah,
this is my confession. And
I need to do it.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
I need to
be pushed to do it.
I need to do it too.
Yeah. So that's one. And of course, my son, I have a bunch of apologies I've made to him and I would judge him about everything because, he figured it out early, like your daughter. He was maybe 12 or 13, 14. And he was figuring it out and he was seeing the hypocrisy so bad. Not that he had any questions about the history of the church necessarily, but it was the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It was the members of the church that were acting worse than his non-member friends, and he was just like, I don't get this, So, but I judged him and I shamed him for not wanting to go to church. I don't know. I made him feel terrible about himself when he didn't do the things I wanted him to do.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so ingrained in us. There's like this control thing. Like we think we have to control them. And if we don't, and if they make a bad decision, it's on us, right? Like that's the way it feels.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I saw too. My mom was the master of guilt, still is, or she tries. Doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work anymore.
Anyway,
yeah,
I did the same things to my kids. It just makes me sick. I wish I could just go back and say, do it different, but I can't. I've apologized to him, but you can't go to every single moment, where you did that. And so
every once in a while, like I'll have a moment like pop into my head and I'm like, oh, that was shitty, and I'll think about it and I'll be like calling my daughter up saying, that one time, that was really shitty. I'm sorry.
And they accept the apologies and they're
yes.
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really, really great about it. Like better than I deserve.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of my kids.
Yeah. I feel so bad about one of my daughters who, I mean, she tried so hard to fit into the Mormon box, and she was in a singles ward in college. It was awful. I mean, awful. It was like, I look at it as a holding bin for, you know what I mean?
Gross.
It was just like, it was all about finding a mate, and the men would just like pick, and they would line up in sacrament.
Ew, it's so creepy.
As the girls are coming in and give them scores and stuff. You know what I mean? It was just sick.
That's so painful.
So she finally had enough and started looking elsewhere for somebody to spend time with, and found this great guy. I love him. And they started to live together, and I was so judgmental. Some of the things I said to her, I just regret that so bad, where she had found happiness.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But all we can see is sin.
Yeah. Instead of trying to hook up with one of these, gross.
Yeah.
Yes, gross guys who really just wanted the little tiny dumb one. So that they could, you know what I mean? That's what they were looking for.
Yes, they
is
didn't
the
want...
little tiny dumb, that they could just lead around and have her do exactly what they wanted. Well, that was not my daughter.
Yeah, you can't have a mind of your own.
Yeah. And so she wasn't the one they were looking for. And then she found, happiness, and I judged her for it. I just, okay, there's another confession. Another asshole Mormon.
Yeah. So you made her feel like she was, doing something harmful by
I'm not so
in.
much harmful, but letting herself down, letting down her standards. She had always had the standard of getting married in the temple, and a returned missionary, and a righteous priesthood holder, and this guy wasn't a member, and I think I said that. I think I actually said that. You're letting yourself down. That was so awful because he was, and I just love him.
Yeah. Isn't that so crazy? But when you're so indoctrinated in the church, you really can't see past that label of, Mormon or non-Mormon or us versus them. You don't see past it. You're just like, but they're not one of us.
Right.
And that is sinning, and that is not okay, So
and not good enough for my daughter. Yeah, it can't be love because it'll never last. Because
they've taught us it's counterfeit. If it's not the way that we're told to do it, then it's not real. That love is not real.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So
and
gross.
then my son too, he actually had a baby before they weren't even together, but they had a baby. He did not dare come to me. We did not know about this little guy for a full year because he was afraid to tell us.
His parents.
That is sad. Yeah. That says I just need, instead of the A for adultery, I need A for asshole. That was. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean,
it's just
and that's a
so
painful thing because you can't get that time back with your grandbaby.
Nope.
But you get the time now.
Yes,
so it's
but like you say, I missed that year of the first coos and the snuggly little baby, and he was walking before we ever
even
knew him. Yeah.
What do you think would have been your response had he come to you and told you? Would you have?
I don't know.
It's so hard to say.
I probably would have. The thing is on that, it's probably for the best in that I would have stalked her. I kid you not. Yeah. Because if they hadn't,
they didn't get married.
No, they weren't even. I don't think at the time they were in love. It was just one of those things, and she chose to have the baby and keep the baby, which I'm so glad. But if I'd have known about him and they weren't together, I would have been that creepy lady in Walmart that was following her around. You know what I mean? She would have been, it's that lady again,
Oh,
so it probably
funny.
is for the best. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But
there are a lot of times when I think, what if I had figured out, the truth so long ago, like how would have these interactions gone differently? How would things have been different?
Yeah, and I think about her too because he was traveling all over the place, and so
For work? Or,
yeah,
Okay.
and so we could have been the help she needed. You know what I
Yes.
mean? She
Yeah.
young, very young, and
Was she
single
on her
mom,
own?
and I mean her parents were there, but she was
Yeah.
trying to live in a
Mm.
little house and do it on her own, and we could have helped her.
Yeah.
You know, but. He didn't feel like he could trust me, and he's probably right. He probably couldn't,
Yeah,
you know.
That's
so.
a really hard thing. Hi. How's it going?
Good. You relaxing?
Yeah. We're having a
What are you
good
doing
time.
Here? Are you done?
You have to
We're
have
rec-
it quiet.
We're
You have to
recording,
have-
so it's I have to be in an enclosed space.
Well, the downstairs echoes, and so there's too much.
You're
noise.
done.
No, we're not done.
No,
we're
we're not.
still recording.
Yeah, you're on
We'll-
on video
we'll
now. You're
edit
being
you.
recorded.
Do you want some wine? Honey, I love wine.
He's like, get me out of here.
He's probably up here checking to see if it's the ghost. Could be.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, we should like have a little seance and invite the ghost to come have some wine with us.
We could.
But our listeners have no idea what we're talking about. Her house is haunted. Nancy lives in a haunted house, and she has ghosts that especially like to hang out in this room that we're in.
His
and,
room in the bathroom. I don't know what they have with bathrooms, but
that is so
like
weird.
to flush the toilet.
No.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
toilet like randomly flushes.
Oh yeah. It's you just went in that bathroom.
I did just go in that bathroom. You are scaring the
You're
shit out of
safe.
me.
You're safe.
They're nice ghosts, right?
I've never felt threatened. I have
That's
never
so
ever felt
interesting.
threatened. When my youngest was a baby,
Mm-hmm.
I would sit down to nurse him
Mm-hmm.
and would feel the presence of somebody looking over my shoulder. And my husband, he thought it was a pervert, some ghost pervert. And I said, no,
It's probably a mother.
You can tell when there's a woman's presence in the room. I can anyway.
Yeah.
And it's another woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a mother. She's not a voyeur.
Yeah.
Just
Just making sure I'm doing it
creepy.
right. She probably nursed 9 of her own.
Yeah, she probably did.
Yeah. So
Oh,
anyway,
gosh.
but yeah, it's
Yeah.
an old farmhouse. It's it's built in 1911. So what is that?
Ooh, 110, 11
Yeah,
years
about
old. 11 years old.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
So anyway, it's got
So,
some
yeah,
history.
my kids swear that our house is haunted, but I just do not believe it.
So,
But it's totally possible. I mean, we're the first people that have ever lived in our house, but that doesn't mean
yeah.
that it can't be haunted necessarily. But
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure what I believe when it comes to that stuff.
See, and that's the part that keeps me in that there's got to be an afterlife because of that. You know what I mean?
because
There's
you've
gotta be
had
something
experiences.
because we've had
Somebody's
experiences
flushing your
go.
toilet.
And nobody, even when we were in the church, could answer that. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, our son would not, I mean, he's huge and he would not stay here alone.
He's afraid.
Yeah.
This big burly man, and he's terrified of the ghost.
He was afraid. He would leave whenever we were gone. Yeah.
I
There's a
wonder what
show
that's
called
like.
The Others. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
And I think it's called The Others. Anyway, it's this house that's haunted, and come to find out, the people who are trying to figure out who the ghosts are actually the ghosts.
Oh, no
Have
way.
you seen that? You haven't seen it.
No.
It's really good. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I
Interesting.
think it's called The Others.
It's kind of like, The Sixth Sense? Like where he's trying to figure out, do you remember that show?
Oh, now that sounds familiar.
No, I don't want to
too.
give it away in case you haven't seen it. But like, it's the kid who sees dead people, and he's like got this therapist that's working with him, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with his mental health and who the dead people are that he's seeing.
And
I don't wanna
he's
give
the
it away.
ghost.
Yeah, he's the dead
Yeah,
person.
the same thing. I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of it. I think it's called The Others.
The Others.
If any
I
of
might
the
have to check
listeners
that
know,
out.
let me know. 'Cause I
Yeah.
wanna watch that again.
Yeah, message us and tell us what it is.
Anyway.
And if you haven't seen it, now we just gave it away. So
that's right.
it's fine.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Well, it's not a new movie, so if you haven't seen it, it's your own fault.
That's right.
It's your own fault.
It's
for
your
being
own
spoilers.
fault.
Although you could choose to. You could have chosen that to see the movie. Not my fault. Yeah, I am known in my family as being the spoiler. Like I spoil
Because you spoil movies.
everything. I spoil movies. I have spoiled way too many movies. I have spoiled sporting events where I've told who won because I saw it and my husband didn't. And I mean, they are so mad at me about this. One time I was teasing with my son because he was staying out too late, and he was at his friend's, and I kept texting him and saying, you got to get your butt home, and he wasn't home, and he's like, Mom, we're watching a movie, it's almost over, and I'm like, what movie is it? And he said it was 7, and I'm like, well, the head's in the box.
So you can come home now.
He was so mad at me. And get this, I've never even seen that freaking movie, but I just knew that was the ending.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
so I was kind of being a sarcastic little, brat, but I didn't realize how big of a deal it was that I spoiled that ending. He has never forgiven me for that.
So I spoil my family's history.
Oh.
Okay, so my family is descendants of Mayflower.
Oh.
The people that
The
come over on the Mayflower. Yeah.
Pilgrims.
So anyway, it was this big thing in my family that Mary Chilton, who is our relative, was the first woman to set foot on Plymouth Rock.
No way.
Okay.
Okay.
No. So
No.
I did the research.
Yeah.
Mary
and it's
Chilton
not
was
true.
not the first one off the boat, and there was no rock. I was in so much trouble for that.
Yep.
That's
Isn't
one-
that so
another thing.
perfect? It's
Find
just
the
like
truth,
the church.
and nobody wants to hear it.
Nobody wants to hear
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
stories are passed down, and they're probably exaggerated, and they're made like super special and wonderful. Like, our ancestors did this, and then you're like, actually,
Yeah, guess what?
it's not exactly how it happened.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so-
funny.
yeah. Anyway,
That
it's
is
kinda
way
fun. But
funny.
yeah, my sister was mad at me for I don't know how long. over that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you told her the truth.
yeah.
And she wanted to believe that
Yeah.
your ancestor was the first
First
person to touch.
put their foot on Plymouth Rock. Well, the rock, I guess,
What are
didn't
the
appear for like
chances?
100 years after. There was no Plymouth Rock.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
anyway,
funny.
yeah. So yeah, it's a good story. Good story. But,
Good story.
Yeah.
It's just like the restoration of the church. It's a great story.
It is a great story.
It's just not true.
Well, and it's pretty. It isn't really a great story. I mean, if you put that in a literary context,
I mean, it could be pretty fascinating.
I
There's some
don't
pretty
know.
weird shit that
We're-
happens.
I would put it in sci-fi, maybe.
Yes, totally, and
Or,
drama.
yeah,
it's
or
very
fantasy. We put it in fantasy.
Yes.
Yeah,
But I
that's
feel
kind of
like-
the world he lived in.
Yeah, if they made like a full-blown movie about the entire thing, I would watch that.
Yeah.
I would watch the shit out of that. Actually, I would hope that it would be a series, like just do the whole series, and I would watch all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was so much weird shit that happened.
Weird shit because he made it up.
Yeah. It didn't actually happen. But that would be what's so cool is
There's
be like,
weird shit in Lord of the Rings
Yes,
too. You don't see me worshiping Frodo.
Totally.
Yeah.
You don't see a whole religion around
No.
it.
No. And there's actually a better message in
Yes.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Those who should we yield the power are those who do not seek it.
Ooh.
That's the message.
Yeah. Yeah, no
So,
kidding.
yeah.
I mean, there's better messages in so many
Yeah.
other contexts than the
Yep.
gospel message.
Which brings me to my other point.
Ooh,
Okay,
yes,
how much
okay.
space have you
I've got plenty.
so this summer, last summer, my high school literature teacher died.
Okay.
And I was feeling so guilty. And I left church and everything, but I was feeling so guilty because I had lied to her. And we were supposed to
No
have read
way.
The Scarlet Letter. And I wrote the paper. I don't know how I wrote the paper, but it was based on nothing I had read. So
Interesting.
anyway, so this summer,
I did that so many times. By the way,
this
in
summer
high school.
that bothered me. You did it so many times?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I don't think I
okay.
read a single book in high school. Like I
Really?
faked all my book reports. Yeah.
Well, I read continually when I was in high school,
I
but
never
it was
read.
none of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to read the classics.
Yeah. No.
So anyway, this summer I was like, I feel so bad about that. I'm going to read it. I read it and I realized how bad I have cheated myself.
Really?
Yes.
Was it a good book? I've never
Good.
read it.
Beautiful message.
Really?
Far better than the book Mormon that I read I don't know how many times. And so after that, I'm like, what else did I miss? And so I started picking up the classics, and that's what I did this summer. And I am so glad I did.
Really? I
Yes.
haven't read any of them.
House of Seven Gables is amazing.
I've never read it.
Great Expectations.
I actually have read that one. Yes.
And Moby Dick.
I've never read that.
Beautiful story.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
Interesting.
And for Christmas, I'm going to read the Christmas Carol, the real life.
real one?
I've seen it in plays and stuff, in
Right.
the movies, but yeah.
There's so many
that's
different
another thing.
versions of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. So the actual
So,
Dickens Christmas
yeah.
Carol.
What you can do when you're not reading the Book of Mormon over and over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do.
Mhm.
A lot of other things I could do.
Yeah.
I probably read the Book of Mormon between 8 and 10 times, probably. Think how many books I could have read.
I know.
Like, the Book of Mormon is 531 pages.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I read it 3
Another
times
time
in
wasted.
between conferences after I had my bishop, the interview with my bishop that blew up.
Yeah.
So I was trying very hard to make
You
it
read
all
it
work.
3 times over?
3 times between conferences. So between October and April,
Uh-huh.
I read it 3 times. But each time got
Worse.
I saw more and more and more problems in
Mhm.
it because something had been turned on.
Yes. That's exactly
And it
how I would
was like-
describe my experience, too.
Mhm.
Something, once that had been...
It was like a switch in my
Yep.
brain.
Once that switch
Mhm.
had gone, because me too, I read the Book of Mormon the last year of being in the church, and I decided, I'm going to read it again.
Mhm.
It had been a couple years since I had read it,
Mhm.
and so I said, I'm going to read it again and see, how I feel. I'd been researching some stuff, but I really wanted to stay. I
Mhm.
wanted it
Me
to
too.
mean something,
Yeah.
and I read it, and I felt nothing.
Mhm.
I felt an absolute void of anything
Mhm.
good, praiseworthy,
Mhm.
beautiful, all the things that it says in the article phase. What does it say?
Article phase.
Anything virtuous, lovely, or good report or praiseworthy. I felt none of those
Yeah.
things.
See, and I not only that, but could see that makes no sense. This makes no sense. Now, wait a minute. That the whole history part of it, like the spoils of war, that's a social phenomenon. You conquer a nation, you inherit their technology. Where did it go? I mean, when the conquistadors got here, they were fighting with flint arrows. So where did all of those?
Yeah, all the
You know?
supposed steel
Yeah,
and
the steel and
the
all
swords
those weapons
and the weapons and the chariots.
where
and
did
the-
it go?
Just dropped off the face of the earth somehow
Yeah.
magically. See, I still never thought about those things. I just felt nothing good from it, and I also felt like God was an angry, mean God.
Mhm.
Like I didn't feel love
Yeah.
from it. I didn't.
And that was one of my shelf items too. Is
Yeah.
like, this isn't the God I know. This
yeah,
isn't, and I don't even use the word God anymore. But
yeah.
yeah.
It was like I felt like I knew God. I felt
Mhm.
like I had a great relationship with God.
Mhm.
I talked to God every
Mhm.
day. I always prayed. I mean, even just, in my mind all the time, like
Mhm.
literally all day long.
I still
would-
do.
Yeah.
I still do. It's
See,
not
I
the
don't.
same God.
Now it
but
feels
yeah.
weird to me. I don't
Really?
know. I still have to figure all that
See,
out.
and that presence, that is just so much peace for me.
Yeah.
I know there's something. I
See,
don't.
I
I
gotta
can't tell
find
you
that.
what it is, but it's.
I need to find that because I feel like this light switched off and I've never been able to like reclaim that or to even reconfigure it into something more, that feels right to me
Mhm.
because I just rejected it all. I shut it all down.
Yeah.
And I
No, that
walked
makes
away.
sense though,
Yeah.
because you stop trusting.
Yes.
And when you stop trusting everybody else, you also stop trusting yourself.
Totally.
It's in there. It really
Mhm.
is in there. You'll find it.
Yeah. I think I'll get there. I think I'll get to that place of like discovering that part again. But I feel like, I've just gone through this the last few years of just completely everything spiritual in me was just like shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And then I only wanted to accept things that were tangible.
Mm-hmm.
And
No, I think that's very. It's.
I
Normal.
think that's pretty natural.
Yeah.
Natural.
When you think about
reaction.
it, you've been burned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've
It's
been
like,
completely
yeah.
deceived.
Yeah, it's deceived.
So yeah,
So-
there's a reason why
Mhm.
that was my coping mechanism was to
Mhm.
just shut it all down.
Yeah.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater. That is definitely what I did,
No.
which I'm fine with. I really don't judge myself about my journey. It's
Mhm.
like I'm okay.
Yeah.
Whatever direction my journey takes me, I'm fine with.
Yeah.
I really have dropped the judgment about it. which is
Yeah.
so huge. That's a huge part of it.
And I can no longer tell you what that looks like, what that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
Not having the answers is fine.
And also
So.
feeling like that could be the answer for me, but it might not be for you. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
allowing everyone to have their own truth,
Absolutely.
their
Yeah.
own belief around whatever it is. Because like there's no need to like convince anybody else of what I believe to say, no, there is no God, you know?
Isn't that nice?
Yes.
To not be responsible for making somebody believe something. Oh my
Yes.
God, really? What kind of a God is that?
Right,
know?
right.
It's
But don't you
like-
think it is ingrained in us, that whole missionary thing?
Yeah, you are responsible
Yes.
for getting everybody else to heaven. Really? I
Yep.
have no control over their
Totally.
minds, over their actions, but I'm responsible?
Mm-hmm.
That is...
But then when we learn the
Sick.
church, we want to tell everyone that when we learn the truth, what did I say?
learn the church.
When we learn the truth, we want everyone to know what we know, and we want to convince them to leave the church or
Mhm.
something, you know, like
Yeah.
there's definitely, I've had that. I still have that all the time.
Do you?
I'm like, oh, my dad needs to know this. Oh, my mom needs to know this. I need to share this with my sister, you know, because it's just ingrained in me. They need to know what I know, you know,
Yeah.
because they would leave the church if they knew what I know. But guess what? They might not.
Oh, sometimes it'll make them double down.
Yes.
But that has not been a thing for me.
Really?
I've been okay to just say,
Just leave it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're in that space. I'm in that space, but I expect the same grace from them.
For sure.
And I don't
Have
get
they given
that.
it to you?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No, I mean there's some that do, but
Yeah.
for the most part, it's like we're not talking about this, you
Mm.
know, and which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But
Because
then-
that's better than the alternative
Yeah.
of being like lectured or
But
told
then I
that you
hear
need to-
what they say behind my back too.
Jeez. That
Really,
sucks.
just give me the same grace I'm giving you. That's all I
Yeah.
ask. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, but
Everybody is.
in the church, judgment is the number one thing we learn.
Mhm.
It's like make sure to judge everyone for what they're not doing or
Mhm.
what they are doing. And
Yeah, because it makes you feel special because you have the truth.
totally.
Yeah.
The truth.
Yep.
Mm.
It blows me away to think that my critical thinking really did not develop until I was in my 50s.
I know, weird, huh?
And it was because I was stunted by the
Do you
church.
think though that you did have some critical thinking skills around other areas of your life?
Absolutely.
But when it came to
Absolutely.
religion, it was like shut off.
Well, it was the shelving.
Yes.
I shelved. And
The
I
thought
know
stopping.
that. Yeah, the thought stopping. I would shelve it all where this mind is fully capable of critical thinking. But why were those taboo things? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? On that
Mhm.
shelf, why was that taboo? I
Mhm.
should have critically
Yep. We should
took
have been
that
able to
apart
think critically
a long
about
time ago.
all the areas of our life, not
Mhm.
just everything except religion.
Yeah, except religion.
what we believed.
hmm And that's why I am so dead set on, because it would be so easy to just say, let's just pretend. But I
Mhm.
am not going to, because I do not want any of my posterity thinking
Yep.
they have to stay in because I did. Because that's the
Yeah.
whole reason I stayed in the temple. I wanted to run.
Yep.
And that's the whole reason I didn't, is because I'm like, okay, Grandma and Grandpa did this. Grandma and Grandpa
Yes.
loved me. They lived great
Oh.
lives. They did, you know what I mean? And
Well, and I've just decided that staying silent
Mhm,
means that you agree.
mhm,
I'm sorry, but like
Mhm.
it's compliance. It's
mhm.
it's being part of the problem,
It
and
is.
so I cannot be silent.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be.
And seeing here in town, I pretty much have to, because I kid you not, they would come against
Mm.
my grandkids. They seriously
That's
would.
so ugly.
It would be.
Yeah.
They would be. Yeah.
That's so
It would be
hard.
either our grandsons would have to choose between us
and you can't have that
Mhm,
either.
mhm.
That's the thing, is so many
So-
people are put in situations like that
Mhm.
where, and it's just survival. It's like, well, I have to do this. I mean, don't you feel bad for like, sorry, my brother has been out of the church for years, mentally,
Mhm,
but he still goes to church with his wife
mhm.
to just keep the
Mhm.
peace. And like, I just don't, it's so
I know lots
painful.
of people like that.
Yeah. It's so
So,
painful.
Yeah.
They can't really speak their truth or live
Mm-hmm.
authentically. And I totally get, like, it's not just black or white. There's a whole
Mhm.
spectrum of, how you show up in the world as far as like your belief goes. Like,
Mhm.
that just because you maybe aren't preaching from your rooftop about the church not being true doesn't mean you're not living
Right.
authentically.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I feel like I'm living authentically.
Absolutely.
But what I can't do is be vocal about
Yes.
how I feel about the church.
Totally.
You know what I mean? I just have to keep.
Totally.
And
I too.
I do believe that everybody is where they are. They need to
Yes.
be,
Yes.
My daughter needs it just as bad as I need to not,
Yeah.
And so I get that. And out of respect for her, I don't say anything negative about the church.
Yeah.
But that part is kind of hard when I have to bite my tongue, especially if they start glorifying Joseph Smith. Then I'm like, really?
Yep.
This
Yep.
man was a
Yep.
sexual
I totally
predator.
know. I'm the
and-
same way. Like, we have to bite our tongues
Mhm.
to preserve relationships. I have to do that
Mhm.
all the time.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Me
I
too.
totally get it.
Yeah.
And it's more like me wanting to, like, in my small little circle of my husband and my kids, like in the beginning of my faith crisis, I genuinely thought, I'm going to let my kids, decide which, like it was right before my daughter was turning 8.
Mm-hmm.
And my other daughter was still fully in. And I really genuinely thought, I'm just going to let them figure stuff out
Mhm.
and do their thing.
Mhm.
But the more time went on, the more I was like, no, hell no. They
Mhm.
have to know the truth. I have to speak up. I have to say the things.
Mhm.
I have to tell them about this church that they are supporting,
Mhm.
because I couldn't let, especially my queer daughter, who was fully in and fully believing and
Yeah.
thinking that like she had to fix something about herself.
Yeah, that there was something wrong.
I was
with
just
her.
like, you have to know. Here's how the church actually started.
So
Here's
she was the
real
one
story.
that was still in?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep, she was the last one to leave.
Oh, bless her heart.
I know. Yeah, she was the most spiritual, most devoted to the church. She did, she went to the temple all the time for fun. She would go to the bishop's storehouse. Like, that's what she would do for fun.
She just has a serving heart.
She
it
has
sounds
an
like.
absolutely serving heart.
Yeah.
She's the most generous, sweet, person. And that really, everything in the church just like filled her up and made her feel like special and like, and she just wanted to give and serve and love
Mhm.
and all the things. And she felt had lots of spiritual experiences,
Mhm.
all this stuff. But then it was like, I just could not let her not love herself completely.
Right.
I was just like, as long as you're in the church, you can never be you.
Yeah.
So
I've thought about that a lot. If my kids were still young, how I would handle it. I think I
Yeah.
would do just that. I would let them choose, but they would have all the facts.
that was it. Yeah. It was like, okay,
like-
it's one thing to let them choose. And I still did, obviously, but it's like, they need informed consent, which is the thing that John Bolin always talks about. But it's true. Like, that is a huge problem with the church. I am totally fine with people being members and, believing whatever the hell they want to believe. But when they're completely ignorant to what the actual facts are, that's where I get frustrated.
And
And when they
pain.
choose to be ignorant.
And if they're in pain
Yes!
and ignorant, then it's like, no, you need
They're actually
to
suffering
know. Yes.
because of what they think is truth.
Mm-hmm. Or
Yeah.
causing pain to somebody else, like one of their
Yes.
children or something. Then
Totally.
I agree.
Totally.
So hard though.
So, yeah. So that was really like a big reason why I just needed my kids to know the truth. And I know that's maybe not how everybody wants to
No.
approach that, because I know
I think
that's
it's
a
smart.
huge issue. As soon as we left the church, I mean, so many conversations between my husband and I of like, what are we going to do with our kids? What are we going to tell our kids?
Mhm.
How are we going to deal with this with our
Yeah.
kids? And at first I thought, well, if our kids aren't in the church, they're not going to have any moral compass, which is bull
Oh,
crap.
everybody thinks that.
Everybody thinks that.
Everybody thinks that.
And it's just not true.
When I first left, I thought if I was still in and my kids were, or if I was leaving and my kids were still young, I would probably stay in, just simply because, it's a good way to raise your kids. And now I'm looking at it and thinking, really?
Yeah.
I have 3 daughters. Is there really a good
Is
way?
it a good way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can see the whole picture. I think
Yep.
a lot of people are very capable of raising children outside of the church and doing
Yes.
a really good job. I've seen some very successful people.
Yeah. Right. Totally. And
Yeah.
then also, like, I don't necessarily regret my upbringing totally.
Mhm.
Like, I don't necessarily think that my life was worse. necessarily because I was in the church. I mean, clearly I have to unlearn a lot of crap, but I had a good life. Like I can't really complain. And surely the church does raise great people. Like there's a lot of amazing Mormon people. But I think for much of the majority of people, they just have their head in the sand.
Right.
And they don't think critically about.
I look at my childhood and I think it was good too, but then I think I did feel second class
For sure.
as a girl.
Yeah.
Because I looked at like my brother. I mean, I was an outdoor kid. I loved the outdoors and stuff. And he got to go on all these amazing hiking things.
The campouts.
The campouts and stuff. And we learned to crochet. You know?
And just sew on buttons.
Yeah. and the fact that he, at 12, is it 12 when they get the priesthood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, he, at 12, had more authority than my mom.
Oof.
You know
Yeah,
what I
what
mean?
is wrong
And
with
I would have been 7 or 8 at the time. I was able to see that.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? At that young, I could see that.
So I never noticed that.
Really, it
No.
just they do have more authority because they have the priesthood and
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
That's sick.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And women are 100% we are second class in the church. But guess what? When I was in the church, I didn't see that.
Oh, I didn't either.
I believed all of the pedestalizing of mothers and women.
Yeah.
And like, oh, they're just so great.
Yep. I
and they're
believed
so
it too.
needed. They're,
And
you know.
I kept thinking, I don't want the priesthood. That's just one.
Me
That's just
too.
one job they can't give to me. You know,
Yep.
they have me do is the priesthood.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I could not understand why Kate Kelly even was doing that whole thing. I'm like, I'm so confused by her. Why the hell does she want the priesthood? And now, I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's like representation matters.
Yeah.
Like these little girls who grow up never seeing a woman
Ever, not even in the
leading.
godhood. I mean, not even in, you know.
No, because
you can't-
now we
the
can't even talk
Godhead
about
doesn't
Heavenly
even-
Mother.
Yeah. It's so sad.
And it's only
just like-
because there's multiple Heavenly Mothers. Like they can't bring up the polygamy
can't bring
thing.
that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick. So
Ugh.
wrong.
It's so wrong.
Anyway, I just think about, you know, women like, okay, so I had a friend who, she married a man after his first wife died.
Okay.
And so her kids got the headstone for their mom with him on this side and her on this side, so that if she was to be buried by her husband, she'd have to be buried by their mother. And but the fact that
oh my gosh.
that she went into that willingly,
Yeah.
knowing that, you know, that I'm going to have to share him throughout eternity. That and believing that, I just
Yeah.
no.
And I have a good friend who lost her husband very young, like maybe at 25 or something. Her husband died in a car accident. And she did have some children with him, but she remarried after that and had a couple more children. And she's been with him now, 25 years or something. And she can't be sealed to him because she's sealed to her first
Not
husband.
only that, but his children
Yes.
go to her first husband and the way they believe.
The way they believe it.
That is so, I think that is so unfair for a man to go through life thinking that is the, that is
And
the
I
thing.
genuinely want to, I would love to ask her, what do you think about this? But of course, I'm not a safe person anymore. And she's super TBM. I don't know how she would answer that. But it's just so wrong. It's so backwards.
And what about what was the one polygamous wife of Joseph Smith's who, she actually married someone, her sweetheart. She married her sweetheart after Joseph had asked her.
Yes.
And then was sealed to Joseph later. And by what they believe, his children, because she stayed married to this guy, his children would be Joseph's.
Yeah. So isn't that also true of Emma? Because she married another man after Joseph died.
Right.
And didn't she have children with him too? I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure.
She did. But also, even if she didn't, that man raised Joseph's children because they were young when he died. And then, but they're all sealed to Joseph. The theology just doesn't make...
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
No.
And the whole, you're sealed to your spouse, but yet and your children are sealed to you, but then they're sealed to their spouses and their
Yes.
children. And then it's like,
So why does
doesn't
any
make
of the
sense.
sealing stuff even matter
Right.
outside of just your spouse?
Mhm.
Because, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like, why does the whole, no empty chairs family think it? Because that
My
could go.
mother's favorite saying.
Oh, I freaking hate that. But like that could go on forever and ever. Like
Mhm.
like what? No empty chairs of what family? Like, is that your family? Is it your children's family? Is it your parents' family? Is it your? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And then,
I do. It makes no
It branches
sense.
off in a million directions. So I remember, like, when my parents got divorced and stuff, I remember just thinking, well, it's just me and my husband. Like,
Mhm.
because I was already married by the time they divorced, but like, I always just like pushed that idea out of my mind. Like, I don't know. Because then my dad remarried and all the things. And it's like, well, who am I sealed to? And then I'm like, I don't even care. I'm sealed to my husband. That's all that matters. Like, none of the other stuff matters. But that's the whole thing is like, it's almost like they want it to be confusing because it can't make total sense.
Right.
But then when you're in the church, you think it makes total sense.
So we're back to that critical thinking.
Yes.
So,
It's almost like this whole circular, like we just could go round and round.
I know. It is so crazy.
It's insane.
Why did it take me 53 years to figure, even though I had shelf items, why did it take me 53 years to figure that out?
I don't know.
And it's like that moment when you realize, okay, all of these apologetic answers for this and this and this and this and this. I started to see it as a brick wall with all these cracks in the bricks. And it's like, okay, we can patch that brick, but then there's this crack down here.
Right.
We can patch that brick, but there's this crack up here. And it was like, eventually you have to say, there's one patch that solves it all.
Yeah. And it's just that
To
it's
tear
not
down
true.
the wall. In the words of Pink Floyd.
Yes. Well, and
Yeah.
here's the other thing about the apologetics is that one apologetic about one issue, they might use one argument, but then it brings up another issue.
Yes, it
And then-
causes a problem with the other.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then with the other issue, you
Yeah.
can't use the same argument.
Yeah.
So you have to, if you're an apologetic, you have to just deal with one issue at a time, like one crack at a time, and you can solve
And they
that
do.
crack.
It's almost like they have specialists.
Yes, yes. There's one, I can
I'm
fix
the
this
polygamy
crack.
specialist. Well, I'm the
Yes, and I'm the Book of Abraham person.
specialist.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
problem that solves this, it causes a problem somewhere else.
Yeah,
and
it's
then-
like that brick wall.
Totally.
You repair the crack here and it causes more fractures in this brick below.
Totally.
It's just crazy.
And then you have to use a different way of patching the crack for every single
Yeah.
crack too,
Yes.
right? Like they don't
Yeah.
all it's not one thing that can solve all of it, which is a
Yep.
clear
And-
sign that it's all just bullshit, right?
Yeah,
Like
the
it just
one
doesn't.
thing is to tear down the wall.
Yeah.
The one thing that works
Yeah.
is to take. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I say, I can't figure out why it took me that long to figure it out when my daughter
Yeah.
had figured it out at 12.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that I'm not doing that because it's stupid. It's like, that makes no sense, Mom.
Interesting.
That whole gold plate thing, that makes no sense.
Yeah. She just wasn't
Yeah.
buying into it.
Mm-mm.
And my kid
And my son, too, he was a little bit older. He was, like junior, senior.
Mm.
But he figured it out really early, too. Why did it take me so long?
I don't know.
I don't think I'm stupid.
See, for my kid, yeah, no. Of course you're not stupid. And that's what we were talking about earlier. I'm like,
No.
intelligence has nothing to do with it, right?
I've read a few books.
I'm no dummy.
I've gone to a good school.
Actually, I don't know where he went to school.
I don't know either.
Probably BYU.
So,
But, oh, crap, what was I going to say? Oh, my son, and I think we talked about this on the episode where I interviewed him, is he said that what he noticed was that the people who were in the church were not acting. They were the jerks at school.
mhm.
They were the rude kids. They were the, they were not the ones acting like Jesus. And like he saw that because he could compare. He had friends that weren't Mormon and he had friends that were Mormon.
Mhm.
And he saw a very distinct difference.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a good difference. Like we all love to think when we're Mormon, like, oh, we have this special light about us. No, he saw the negative side of like the way the kids that were Mormon acted versus, and he's like, this doesn't make sense because we go to church and we learn this. We learn what Jesus says, but that's not how they act, you know?
Yeah. But
So
the thing
that
is,
was more where his shelf was breaking.
when I was his age, when I was 16, I saw that too.
You did?
But I shut it off for some
Yeah.
reason. I shut it off after I got married. Because as a teenager, I saw that hypocrisy right off.
Yeah.
And so...
And whatever, it's like, I don't know why our brains work the way they do, and we're just able to just shut it off. And
I think a lot of it was I just didn't have a recipe for parenthood.
ugh, yeah.
You know, and
I don't think any of us
that was
do.
the only recipe I saw was that indoctrination
Yeah.
thing. And it truly is indoctrination. You can call it whatever you want.
100%.
I said that the other day to my mom, and she's like, "You think you were indoctrinated?" And I'm like, "Mom, read the definition of indoctrination." Really? You know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's
I mean,
blatantly
that's and
indoctrination.
that's even, a pretty mild term, because sometimes you could fully say brainwashed, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I think indoctrination is a much gentler term than maybe
Yeah.
what you could say.
Anytime you baptize a child at 8, before they even have the brain capacity to think abstractly. I mean, baptism is one of the most abstract things you could, to take on somebody else's sins, to pay for somebody else's sins,
to like
die for somebody else.
You're like dying when you go down in the water, and
that
then
is
you come
so
up a new
abstract.
person.
And by 8, they don't have that ability.
Yeah,
They're still
and then with
in
the sacrament, eating
concrete occupational thought. I mean, they're
Totally.
just it just
eating the bread and water with the body and blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, none of that actually makes sense when
and
you're
some
8,
kids,
right?
some kids I've noticed it just goes off them like like water off a duck's back.
Yeah,
But some kids, they
Really
take
think
that
about it.
internally, and I think it causes like depression, and every time they sin, they feel like they've hurt Jesus, and I think it can be very dangerous. Some kids
For
just
sure.
like whatever,
Yeah.
But-
And then other kids, it really
Mhm.
damages their mental health and
Mhm.
makes them really question themselves and not be able to just be who they are.
Mhm.
They're constantly feeling guilt over every little thing. Like
Mhm.
the whole crap. I'm gonna forget the word. The thing where you're like hyper aware of like being righteous and perfect. Scrupulosity.
Scrupulosity.
Yeah.
I think I had that as a little kid.
Did you?
Because I was like, when I would say my prayers,
Mm-hmm.
I would like pray for hours because I was afraid I was going to forget somebody. And if I did, that person was going to get hurt or die or something like that. I think I had that when I was little. But
That's terrible. When I think about like, I guess the ways that the church affected me negatively, the fear is the number one thing that comes up for me, is the fear that they instilled in me about making sure you did everything right so that you didn't get physically harmed, right? First off, like I thought that, being righteous was going to protect me, and then also spiritually harmed, like being separated from Jesus. Like not
And your
being able to
family.
have the Spirit with you or something,
Yeah.
like if you sinned or being separated from your family after this life. Like there's a lot of freaking
for
fear.
a child, a family is the structure. That is their first, their first structure that gives them security.
Yeah.
And so to threaten that at a very young age, that's indoctrination. That is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's super hard to overcome. Like, because, and like we kind of already said, like some kids are way more susceptible to it than others. Whereas like some kids, they just soak it up like a sponge and they believe it and they make choices based on it and they do all this thing and they have all this fear and anxiety. And then other kids are able to just be like, meh, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
So for those kids, that's probably a blessing that they are able to like not take it too serious or,
it is.
Not think too concretely about it or whatever.
Yeah. And the songs, after I left, or I was leaving, we were still attending, but I was mentally out, about as mentally out as you could get.
Yeah.
Anyway, I walked through the hall and the kids were singing Follow the Prophet. I got sick to my stomach. I had to run to the bathroom because I was sick. Because I just realized that repetitive,
Mhm.
the repetition of the
Chanting.
words, the chanting of of the words, the rhythm of the song even
Yes.
is set up to.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, you used the word brainwashing,
Uh-huh.
and that's pretty much what that is. That's wrong. That is so
Totally.
wrong.
Totally. And like,
And why
okay,
not follow Jesus?
they've
Follow Jesus, follow Jesus. It'd work.
yeah.
I mean,
Why couldn't
why
they do
isn't
that?
it? Why is it follow the prophet? Yeah.
He knows the way.
Yep. And the Kool-Aid's really good.
So stupid. When you think about how Joseph Smith just made all that shit
Oh
up,
my gosh.
isn't that so
My
funny?
gosh. I cannot now hear the brother of Jared's story without cracking up.
Dying laughing.
Yeah, it's like, really, if you're in a boat and you're upside down and there's feces dripping from the ceiling and bees flying all over, don't you know you're upside down?
You have to take the cork out to see if the water comes in.
Holy shit! and when it talks about dashing in windows,
Yes, the windows being dashed to pieces.
before there's glass.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just laughed.
Isn't that
now.
crazy?
It's
And we
hilarious.
never thought about that when we were Mormon.
No.
Never thought about it. Just like, oh, it's just this miraculous
See,
thing.
I was stupid.
I was stupid too. Well, thank you so much for. She made me lunch. Did I already say this?
Oh,
But,
I can't
when we were recording,
remember.
she made me lunch. I don't know. We've had
She brought me
more
wine.
than a bottle of wine.
It's wonderful.
We've just had a really great afternoon visiting, and I just love you. Like, seriously, like it's so funny how much we have in common.
Oh, I know. It is.
We'll just be talking and we'll be like, me too.
Yeah.
It's constant me too.
I swear she was supposed to be my sister.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
So we were meant to meet each other and become friends. So I'm so grateful for it. And thank you for being willing to come and talk with me on the podcast.
Love it. Anytime.
So we will end this now, and until next time. I'm sure you'll come back on, right? You'll come back on and talk to me just whenever. Okay. We're doing it.
More confessions.
You heard it here. I have it recorded. She said she'll come back. I will play this for you. If you ever say no, I'll be like, she said anytime. You said it. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye.